This video is sponsored by Moonlight Maps. Offering hundreds of high-quality battle maps, Moonlight Maps sells them individually on their store, or you can pledge to their Patreon to get new maps every single week. These maps are printable and also come with functional Foundry VTT programming for ambient lighting, dynamic sounds, and more. If you're looking for tons of new, high-quality grid maps to use at your table, check out Moonlight Maps using the link in the description. Thank you, Moonlight Maps, for sponsoring today's video. We all got demons. We all gotta face them someday. For me, someday is today. Howdy. My name is Nonat, and welcome to the deep dive for the Pathfinder 2e Fighter class! You are kidding me. You are kidding me, Truck. I waited 3 months to record this video again. Many of you may be confused as to why I'm so energetic and so involved. Well, that's because this video is about 3 or 4 months overdue. And honestly, a lot of you have probably never even seen a video like this, because the last time I did a class deep dive, I think might have been before 10k subs, maybe a little bit after, I can't remember. It's been a long year. But if this is your first time watching a class deep dive for Pathfinder 2e, strap in, because it's going to be a long video. Basically, I go through every single thing about the class from top to bottom, starting proficiencies, all the feats, all the class features, everything in the Advanced Player's Guide, all from level 1 to 20 in one massive video. And usually it takes about 45 minutes to an hour. But because Paizo loves the fighter so much, it's gonna take upwards of an hour and a half to 2 hours because fighters have the single highest number of feats in the game. This is my 5th time trying to record this video over the course of the last 3 months. I tried 3 times, couldn't get through it, and took a break from rules stuff. Now I'm back with a vengeance, and we're gonna knock this thing out of the park and be done with the fighter. I won't be yelling the whole time. Probably. So strap in, grab a snack, put me on in the background, put me on like a podcast on your way to work. Let's talk about what I believe is the single strongest class in Pathfinder 2e. The fighter's key ability score is strength or dexterity, unsurprisingly. You're going to want to focus on one or the other. It would be a little tough to focus on both, but you can choose either one for your key ability score. They also get 10 hit points per level plus con mod. Pretty standard average hit points. Slightly above average. You know, it's really not even that complicated to understand why fighters are so powerful in this system. You just need to look at their starting proficiencies. Expert in perception, expert in fortitude saves, expert in reflex saves, trained in will saves, expert with simple weapons, expert with martial weapons, trained in advanced weapons, expert in unarmored attacks, unarmed strikes, expert in unarmed strikes, and trained with all armor. Being an expert in 2 out of the 3 saving throws and perception, and with all simple and martial weapons at level 1, puts them leagues ahead of every other class in the game, at least as far as basic attacks and saving throws go. They're also trained in acrobatics or athletics, and then 3 additional skills plus intelligence modifier. Other than that, fighters only get 2 class features. Attack of Opportunity, which is still incredible, because at level 1, fighters are the only class that can make attacks of opportunity. Plus Shield Block, which if your shield is raised, you can use it to block some incoming damage and redirect it to your shield instead. And that's it. That is almost everything a fighter gets at level 1, except for, of course, their fighter feat. They're a martial class, which means they get a feat at level 1, and then 2, and even levels going forward. But we will get to the feats. For now, let's talk about the rest of the class features, starting with, obviously, skill feats at 2nd level and every even level going forward, and already, right at 3rd level, fighters increase their will saves to expert with bravery. And not only that, if they succeed a will save against a fear effect, it's a critical success instead. Not only that, but fighters permanently reduce any frightened condition they suffer by 1 stage. This means that any fighter of level 3 or higher is immune to any effect that inflicts Frightened 1. If they get Frightened 2, they are only Frightened 1. This is one of the strongest early game class features as far as saving throws are concerned. It's amazing. After that, things are pretty simple for a while. General feats, skill increases, ability boosts, ancestry feats, it's all very standard stuff. But then we get to Fighter Weapon Mastery. Now, this is not as overly broken as I like to joke about. Come 5th level, fighters become Master Proficiency with a single weapon group. At the same time, every other martial class becomes an expert with all of their weapon groups, or at least the ones they were already proficient with. This basically means that at level 5, every other class is the exact same proficiency as a fighter, except in the fighter's one chosen weapon group. So if you choose swords, you are Master Proficiency with anything in the sword weapon group, but anything else stays at expert. The fighter also unlocks the critical specialization for that weapon group. 7th level is one of the biggest power spikes for the fighter in combat. First off, they get Battlefield Surveyor. This bumps their perception checks up to Master Proficiency, and it gives them a permanent +2 circumstance bonus to perception specifically for rolling initiative. So at level 7, even if they have a 0 wisdom, the fighter still has a +15 to initiative. 6 from Master Proficiency, 7 from their level, and 2 from this circumstance bonus. It's disgusting. They also get Weapon Specialization, which lets you deal additional damage with weapons depending on your proficiency. And if you're using your Master Proficiency weapon group, you're dealing an additional 3 damage per hit. This isn't as big a deal to something like a Great Weapon Fighter who's hitting maybe once or twice per turn, but especially if you're a 2-weapon fighter and you're attacking 2 or 3 times per turn, that adds up fast. 9th level is fascinating, probably the most unique class feature fighters get, and that is combat flexibility. Once per day, when you prepare in the morning, you can choose any fighter feat of 8th level or lower and act as though you have that feat for the full day. Even if you didn't take Blind Fight at level 8, you can choose one day to have Blind Fight, and then the next day, take Point Blank Shot. You can prepare for the day ahead, and you basically get a Swiss Army knife that lets you have a different feat every day, depending on what you're going after. Most of the time, you'll probably pick one feat that complements your build, and stick with that feat as basically just an extra class feat, but having the option to switch to make your bow a little bit better, or something like that, is so nice to have. Juggernaut's pretty basic. Fortitude saves increase to Master, and you automatically crit succeed any normal Fortitude save successes. At 11th level, fighters increase their armor proficiency to Expert with all armors, which is pretty slow, especially compared to something like the Champion. The fighter is definitely not the most defensive character in the game, though they're also not squishy. They gain the armor specialization for medium and heavy armors, and they also increase their class DC to Expert, which 9 times out of 10 doesn't matter. 13th level, we see Weapon Legend. This is almost the exact same as Fighter Weapon Mastery, but your chosen weapon group increases to Legendary Proficiency, which is max at level 13, and all other weapons increase to Master, just like other martials. Evasion is like Juggernaut, but for reflex saves, increasing them to Master and auto-crit succeeding any normal success. And Greater Weapon Specialization doubles the damage you're getting from normal weapon specialization, and if you're using your legendary weapon, that means you're dealing 8 bonus damage on every hit. Again, if you're a build that attacks multiple times per turn, that is so much free damage. Improved flexibility lets the fighter prepare another extra feat per day, and this one can be up to 14th level, and this does stack with combat flexibility from level 9. So starting at level 15, you get to prepare a level 8 or lower feat and a level 14 or lower feat. Basically, fighters get 2 more class feats than any other class in the game, which is why they have so many class feat options. We'll get to that. Armor Mastery. Your armor proficiency increases to Master. And finally, at level 19, you get Versatile Legend. You're just legendary with every weapon type in the game. Everything catches up to your chosen weapon group, and you're just amazing with any weapon, no matter what it is in your hands. Unless they're advanced weapons, they still cap out at Master. Okay, we've only been recording for 15 minutes. Maybe this isn't going to take that long. No, we've just begun. That was the prologue. There's still 10 chapters to go, baby! So strap in, because it's time to talk about fighter feats, starting with Double Slice, which is a fan favorite. Actually, before we get into that, I do want to explain how fighter feats tend to work. As you might have noticed, compared to a lot of other classes, fighters don't get a subclass. They don't have a Barbarian Instinct. They don't have a Bard Muse. They don't have a Cleric Doctrine. They just are a fighter. Well, a fighter's archetype is sort of determined by the feats they pick. You'll notice going forward that each feat will be applied to a certain fighting style of fighter, whether that be two-weapon, great weapon, sword and board, single weapon. There's a bunch of different types of fighting styles, and what's nice is that the fighter can pick and choose from them, or even mix and match them to have different options available to them, but basically, that's how fighter subclasses work. It's all dependent on the feats you choose. So let's look at Double Slice, which has a requirement that you are wielding 2 melee weapons, each in a different hand. Double Slice is pretty simple. For 2 actions, you attack twice, once with each of your weapons at the same multiple attack penalty. So if this is your first action on your turn, you get to attack twice at full bonus. Now, if either of the weapons you're wielding are not agile, then that weapon does take a -2 penalty, but even if you're dual wielding long swords, -2 is not that bad to be dealing so much damage. The 2 attacks are actually combined together when it comes to damage, so they act as a single impact when it comes to resistance or weakness. So you roll, you see which ones hit, 1, both, or none, add the damage together, and deal all of that at once. It is a phenomenal feat, and you can never go wrong. The biggest downside is that you still accrue the penalty for both of your attacks, so if you choose to attack again after this, it's gonna be at -10. Exacting Strike I have problems with. It's super simple. For a single action, you get to make a strike, and if you miss, your multiple attack penalty does not increase. That sounds so cool until you learn how the press trait works. The press trait will be coming up a lot and turn some really great feats into some pretty mediocre feats. Any attack with the press trait cannot be used unless you already have a multiple attack penalty. This means you need to at least attack 1 time before using any of these feats. So looking at Exacting Strike, you are already attacking at -5 when using this, because it's assumed you attacked once and now you're attacking for the second time. And cool, if you miss, you can attack a 3rd time, still only at -5 instead of -10. It's a decent way to get a second chance at that lowered accuracy. Though one important thing that nobody ever talks about is specifically press actions almost always have a failure result. You can see here, failure does not count toward multiple attack penalty. Well, that does not apply on a critical failure. And you're rolling at -5. So you might still use Exacting Strike, but if you roll low enough with that -5 against the enemy's AC and you miss by 10 or more, your multiple attack penalty still increases. So overall, Exacting Strike is not great. It's okay, especially on those turns where you just want to swing wildly, but it's that press action that kills it. Point Blank Shot is a personal favorite. This is a stance feat, which uses a single action to get you into a stance, and so long as you do not exit that stance for any reason, like falling unconscious, you permanently gain the benefits for the rest of combat. Point Blank Shot is simple. If your weapon has the volley trait, like on a longbow, where you take penalties for attacking within 30 feet, you don't take that penalty. You can use this stance to use your longbow within 30 feet and be fine. Alternatively, if your weapon is something like a short bow and doesn't have the volley trait, you just get a permanent +2 damage bonus to all attacks made with that weapon. I cannot tell you how useful this is on a short bow. I used a fighter with a short bow for a long time, and you don't get to add strength or dex to that bow attack. So, Point Blank Shot giving you that +2 to all of your bow attacks, very, very nice. And of course there's Power Attack. 2 actions, attack really, really hard, and if you hit, you deal an additional weapon damage die of damage. Not only that, but this is the rare instance of a feat that scales with your level. Once you hit level 10, you deal another extra damage die, and level 18 is another one. So, at level 18 with power attack, you are dealing 3 extra dice of damage on this attack, which if you're using a D12 weapon like a Great Axe or a Maul, that's a lot. Keep in mind though, this does have the Flourish trait, which means even if you somehow find a way to get enough actions to use it twice, you cannot. Anyone can only ever use a single Flourish action per turn. Just like Double Slice, Power Attack does count as 2 attacks for your multiple attack penalty, so if you attack again afterwards, it's at -10. Reactive Shield is phenomenal, but a little bit risky. If an enemy hits you with a melee strike, you can use your reaction to raise your shield at the last second, granting your shield's armor class bonus to yourself, possibly preventing the entire attack. This is great and can completely cause an enemy to miss you when they would have hit. What is unfortunate about this is you cannot use Reactive Shield directly into shield block, so you cannot raise your shield and reduce the damage if the attack still hits. That's because Reactive Shield is a reaction, and Shield Block is also a reaction, and you only get 1 reaction per turn. So if you still want to use Shield Block, you still need to raise your shield on your turn and save your reaction to do that. You cannot do it with Reactive Shield. Yet. Snagging Strike is fantastic if you want to play a sort of party support fighter. It's a single action strike where you attack, and if you hit and you have a single hand free, you place that hand on your target. Now, they're not completely grabbed, but they are flat-footed, either until the start of your next turn or until they take a movement action away from you, whether that be a simple step or a turn and run or anything. If they're not next to you anymore, they're not flat-footed anymore. But what this means is they either need to waste an action getting away from you, which might provoke an attack of opportunity, or they're just flat-footed to your entire party until your next turn. Rogues have fun. Sudden Charge is probably the single most popular level 1 feat, possibly in the entire system because a few classes have access to it. For 2 actions, you stride twice and attack so long as you end adjacent to an enemy. There's nothing wrong with this feat. It's amazing action economy. With Sudden Charge, you can move in and attack twice, all on the first turn of combat. That's fantastic. You get to move double your movement speed. Doesn't need to be in a straight line. This is one of the best positioning tools in the game below level 5. In the Advanced Player's Guide, we have the final level 1 fighter feat, and a very overlooked one at that. Combat Assessment. This is another really good action economy feat. For a single action, you make an attack, and if you hit, you can recall knowledge on that enemy for free. A lot of people don't like to recall knowledge because it uses an action on your turn. If you want to do that and you want to make an intelligence fighter, go for it, take battle assessment, and be your entire party's best friend. And if the attack that triggers combat assessment is a critical hit, you get to add +2 to that recall knowledge check. A fantastic feat that nobody uses. I'm going to be here a while, so I'm slouching down a little bit and getting comfortable, so I tilted my camera down. Don't freak out. Aggressive Block, a free action that triggers whenever you reduce damage by using Shield Block. This is pretty fantastic. So long as the creature that hit you is your size or smaller, as a free action, you can shove them 5 feet. No athletics check, nothing they can do about it. You just push them back 5 feet, basically making them waste an action stepping back towards you or possibly going after someone else. Now, the creature can choose not to be moved by you, but that causes them to be flat-footed until the start of your next turn. Either of these is a really good result for you, and as a sword and shield fighter, you're pretty durable, so you can either keep distracting them by making them waste actions, or make them easier to hit for your allies. It's a great feat. Assisting Shot would be pretty okay, maybe even good, if it weren't for that dreaded press action. So you cannot use Assisting Shot as your first attack on the turn. You need to make this attack at -5, but if you do hit with Assisting Shot, the next creature that is not you to attack that target gets a +1 to hit it. Should you somehow critically hit with Assisting Shot, even through that -5 penalty, then the next creature to attack them gets a +2 to hit them. This is fantastic, that bonus is great. Why does it have the press action? Make it a flourish. That'll be fine. Why does Assisting Shot have to be lowered accuracy? I don't get it. Press make me sad. Brutish Shove, another single action that would be good, but it's a press action. You need to be wielding a two-handed weapon to use this, and if you successfully hit a target with Brutish Shove, then you can automatically shove them 5 feet for free, no athletics check. In addition to being shoved, they are also flat-footed until the end of your current turn. And this is a press action. So this was at least your second action, which means you have 1 action left. This is not a good feat, unfortunately, because here's the ideal situation. You attack once, hit or miss, whatever. You attack again by using Brutish Shove, because it's a press action, you had to use it the second time. You hit, you deal damage, you shove them maybe 5 foot to the left to separate them from your ally, and they're flat-footed. That means on your next attack, you have a net -8 to hit them, because you're using a two-handed weapon, which means you cannot be agile. So this attack is at -10, but since they're flat-footed, it's 2 better accuracy for you. It's not a good feat. The only benefit is that if you miss, they're flat-footed until the end of your turn anyway. Don't get me wrong, two-handed weapon fighters are great, but this feat is definitely a dud. Combat Grab. This is basically just an upgrade to Snagging Strike, and I'm shocked Snagging Strike is not a prerequisite. Basically, as long as you have a free hand, when you attack with Combat Grab, you grab your target. No athletics check. This lasts until the end of your next turn, or until it escapes. This makes Brutish Shove look even worse by comparison. Combat Grab, I understand why they gave it the press action. This is so strong. Keep in mind, a grabbed creature cannot move, and they're flat-footed. They're immobilized and flat-footed so long as they're grabbed. So if they want to get ungrabbed, they need to waste an action to escape from you. And guess what? Escaping is an attack action. So either they attack you and then escape, and then their escape attempt is at a lower penalty, or they escape first, and then if they try to attack you, that attack is at a -5 penalty. The Combat Grab is incredible. Dueling Parry is basically raise a shield for single weapon fighters. So long as you have a free hand, you can spend an action to put up your weapon and give yourself a +2 to AC until your next turn. It's literally raise a shield, and it's great. Intimidating Strike is phenomenal. This is a 2-action melee strike that if you hit, you inflict Frightened 1, giving them a -1 penalty to almost literally everything until the end of their next turn. And if you critically hit, they're Frightened 2, and keep in mind, Frightened only goes down 1 stage per turn, which means they're still Frightened 1 after their next turn. Remember, folks, Frightened lowers armor class. Keep that in mind. Frightened is one of the single easiest to inflict and best status conditions in the game. Intimidating Strike is fantastic, and it doesn't have the press trait! Also, there's Lunge. For 1 action, you can attack from 5 feet farther away. Just really good. It's not a press, it's not a flourish. You can literally do this on any attack. You can even use it to increase the range of your combat maneuvers like shove and disarm if your weapon has that trait. Combine this by shoving someone 5 feet away and then poking them, amazing. Dragging Strike is almost the exact same as Brutish Shove, except instead of shoving 5 feet, you pull them 5 feet towards you. Other than that, it is literally the same feat. It has the press trait, it is flat-footed until the end of that current turn, and if you miss, they're also flat-footed. The only other difference is that this does not require a two-handed weapon and can be used with any weapon, or no weapon. Rebounding Toss is the first of a little bit of support for a thrown weapon fighter, which is cool, and I kind of hope to see more in the future. For 2 actions, you can throw any kind of throwing weapon and have it hit a single target and bounce to another one. This is basically double slice from first level for throwing. You get to roll, hit somebody, and then roll again on a different target without accruing a multiple attack penalty until after the attack. So it's 2 attacks at full bonus against 2 different targets. The only limitation is the targets can be no more than 10 feet apart. Double Shot, the bow and arrow fighter's bread and butter. That was a lot of alliteration. For 2 actions, so long as your ranged weapon does not need to reload, you can attack twice against different targets at a -2 penalty on each shot. But the shots do not accrue a penalty until after you've made them. So they're both at -2, but they don't have the actual multiple attack penalty on them. Fantastic feat, it's great. If you're using a bow and arrow, you're probably going to take this feat. Dual-handed assault is cool, but part of me wishes this was a feat. You can only use dual-handed assault if you have a single weapon and a free hand, and basically for a single action, you place your free hand on your single weapon and drive the attack in with such force that you increase the damage die one step. If you have a 1d6 rapier and you grab it with your other hand, that deals 1d8 for that single attack. Additionally, if the weapon already has the two-handed trait like a bastard sword, you simply get a flat circumstance bonus to damage equal to the number of weapon damage die. Again, this would be more cool as a stance that empowers your ability to two-handed wield weapons, but maybe that would get a little bit weird with actual two-handed weapon fighters. Great weapon fighters. There. Knockdown is one of the single strongest feats below level 10 in the entirety of Pathfinder 2e. Tell me I'm wrong. For 2 actions, you get to attack a target. If you hit and deal damage, you also get to make a trip athletics check to knock them prone. Both of these are made at your full attack bonus, and you do not accrue a penalty until after you have taken the trip check. This means you get to attack, deal your weapon damage, and then roll athletics to knock them prone at your full bonus. No longer do you need to decide between the two, you just get to do them both so long as you don't miss. In my first Pathfinder 2e campaign I ever ran, our great weapon fighter took this right at level 4, and he became the single strongest member of the party simply because he could do so much damage, knock enemies down, and every enemy pretty much had to get up, which means attack of opportunity, or they would just have to try to stab at their ankles, which leaves them prone, which leaves them flat-footed, and it is just a monster of a feat. Powerful Shove is really fun. Aggressive Block and Brutish Shove require the target to be your size or smaller, but Powerful Shove lets you shove people up to 2 sizes larger than you. On top of that, if you ever shove someone and they hit something that stops them from being shoved the full distance, you just get to deal your strength mod as damage. Pretty cool. And that does work with things like Aggressive Block, so if you block someone's attack and then shove them into a wall, they take that damage. Quick Reversal is really cool, a little bit situational, and again has that dreaded press trait. For a single action, if you are flanked, you can attack both targets. Again, if this didn't have press, that would be so cool. It's already situational enough that you have to be flanked to use this. Why do you need an attack penalty first? On the upside, the 2 attacks are at the same penalty, and it's only a single action, so that is effectively able to attack 3 times for 2 actions, so long as your second action is Quick Reversal, and those 2 second attacks are at -5 each rather than -10. It's not a bad feat, but it could be better, but maybe if it was better, it would be too good for level 4. Cinematically though, Quick Reversal is one of my favorite feats. You get to attack both things flanking you in a single action, so freaking cool. Shielded Stride. So long as you have raised your shield on this turn, you can take stride actions, and as long as you move half your speed or less, you don't trigger reactions like attacks of opportunity. This is great. Most people are stuck with the 5-foot step to prevent attacks of opportunity. You can probably move 10 or 15 feet without doing so. This basically doubles or triples your step length so long as your shield is raised. Swipe is pretty simple. You roll once and use that attack on 2 adjacent targets that are next to you. You deal damage to each of them like a normal attack roll, and then it counts as 2 attacks for your multiple attack penalty. This is pretty great, and what's really cool is if you're using a weapon with the sweep trait, it applies to both attacks, even though it technically wouldn't always apply to the first one. Twin Parry is basically dueling parry for 2-weapon fighting. For a single action, you put up your weapons and gain a +1 to armor class until the start of your next turn. If either of your weapons has the parry trait, like a rapier does, I believe the rapier does, then you get a +2 bonus instead of +1. Barreling Charge effectively lets you use athletics to tumble through instead of acrobatics. You stride up to your speed, and if you want to move through enemies' spaces, you can roll athletics against their fortitude DCs rather than acrobatics versus their reflex. So long as you succeed, you move through their space fine, and at the end of your stride, you can make a melee strike. Pretty great stuff. Advanced weapon training at level 6 is the only way to get advanced weapons to legendary proficiency. You pick a weapon group, probably your preferred weapon group, and all advanced weapons in that group count as martial weapons when it comes to proficiency. Advantageous Assault is a fantastic feat and a wonderful follow-up to Combat Grab or Knockdown. Advantageous Assault is a fantastic feat even with that press trait. It combines very well with Knockdown like we talked about earlier. If you use Advantageous Assault on a target who is grabbed, prone, or restrained, you get a bonus to damage equal to the number of weapon damage dice, which at level 6 is probably 2. And if you are two-handing your weapon, that is an additional +2 on top of that. Basically, at level 6, you can look at this as deal +4 damage to prone targets if you're using a great weapon. On top of that, if you normal miss, doesn't work on a critical miss, but if you normal miss your target, you still get to deal that bonus damage. So with a two-handed weapon, you can look at this as, oh, I missed, but I still deal 4 damage. Not bad. Disarming Stance is okay. It would be better if disarming as a function worked better in Pathfinder 2e. So long as you have a free hand and a single melee weapon, you can spend an action to get into this stance, and so long as you are there, you get a permanent +1 circumstance bonus to disarm checks and a +2 to saving throws against being disarmed. On top of that, you can also disarm targets up to 2 sizes larger than you, which is super funny. The downside is that disarming is not amazing in Pathfinder 2e. A normal success disarm does not disarm the target. It simply gives them a -2 penalty to their attack rolls with that weapon next turn unless they spend a single action to reaffirm their grip. You only actually disarm a target if you critically succeed your disarm check, which is gonna be a whole lot harder. Furious Focus isn't bad. From now on, whenever you use power attack, it only gives you a single multiple attack penalty instead of 2, which means your follow-up attack after power attack might not miss. Guardian's Deflection is cool, but for some reason it doesn't work with a shield. You need to have a free hand and a single melee weapon, and if your ally is hit by an attack, you can use your reaction to try to fend that attack off and give your ally a +2 circumstance bonus to armor class against that attack. This is one of those weird feats where you are actually only legally allowed to use it if it would change the result of the attack. For some reason, if that +2 wouldn't change the result, rules as written, you're not allowed to use Guardian's Deflection, which is really funny to me. Reflexive Shield is just a straight upgrade to your shields. Raising your shield now gives its AC bonus to your reflex saves as well, and Shield Block can now be used to reduce damage taken from reflex save-based abilities like Fireball. Revealing Stab is one of those feats where I don't necessarily like it being a feat. For 2 actions, if you have specifically a piercing weapon, you can attack a concealed foe. If you hit it, you can release your weapon, and because your weapon is now stuck in that creature's body, everybody can now see the hidden creature. On top of that, instead of needing a DC 11 to hit the creature, you only need a DC 5 when using this attack. Should you succeed and your weapon is sticking out of this creature, your allies can all see where it is, and that DC 11 is reduced to a DC 5 for them as well. What is nice is it's not easy to remove. The creature must spend 2 full actions to take the weapon out, but then it has your weapon. And that's a whole can of worms. Shatter Defenses is another fantastic feat that, even though it has the press trait, is fantastic. If you attack and deal damage to a frightened creature with this ability, it becomes flat-footed until the frightened condition ends, which is at the end of its next turn. On top of that, if the target is already flat-footed when you deal this damage, they cannot reduce their frightened condition below 1 until the end of your next turn. This is incredible. It's a great way to keep a target frightened. The press action isn't even that bad because you know they're frightened, so their AC is slightly lowered. Do this with like an agile weapon, you're not looking at that bad of a penalty. You can probably hit with this pretty well. Shield Warden is fine. You can use your damage-reducing shield block on an adjacent ally when they take damage. Pretty cool. Triple Shot is, I wouldn't even necessarily call it an upgraded Double Shot. It's just a different option. Whereas Double Shot is 2 shots at 2 targets at -2, this is 3 shots at 3 targets at -4. Now the upside is it's still only 2 actions. So this is 3 attacks for 2 actions, all only at -4. Dazing Blow is absolutely hilarious. It has that press trait, which is unfortunate, but for a single action, if you have a creature grabbed, You can bonk them on the head with either your fist or the pommel of your weapon. You make a melee strike, and then they make a fortitude save against your class DC. Should they critically succeed, nothing happens, but they still take damage. Should they normal succeed, they're stunned 1. A failure is stunned 2, meaning they lose 2 actions on their following turn, and if they critically fail, they basically miss their next turn. This is the fighter's version of Stunning Blow, and it's great, because you're literally putting them in a headlock and giving them a mega noogie and punching them in the head. It's hilarious. Ricochet stance is pretty much a must-have for any thrown weapon fighter. So long as you're in this stance, anytime you make a thrown weapon attack, it bounces off the target and comes back to you. This only works if it is within the first range increment of the weapon, however, so keep in mind this will usually only be 15 or 20 feet at most. Blind fight, pretty simple. Concealed creatures no longer have a flat check to hit them, and the DC to hit a hidden creature is only DC 5 instead of DC 11. Also, if you happen to step up next to an undetected creature you did not know was there, your DM has to say, there is a hidden creature next to you. You have that blind... This is basically Spidey sense. You're basically Spider-Man. Dueling Riposte is phenomenal and only works if you have a single melee weapon and a free hand. As a reaction, if your opponent critically misses you with a strike, you get to either attack back or attempt to disarm them. Very fun. Felling Strike for 2 actions is mostly designed for ranged weapons, but can technically work with a melee weapon. For 2 actions, you attack a target. If that hits and deals damage and the target happens to be flying, it descends 120 feet. Sadly, it does not take damage if it happens to hit the ground, but it does ground a target, and they cannot fly until the end of your next turn. So it basically grounds a target for a full round, and if you hit them on the next round with Felling Strike again, it resets and they cannot fly again. This is a great way to keep things like dragons or griffins on the ground as you beat the crap out of them. As I said, this is best for something like a longbow because it doesn't have to be a melee strike, but if there's something like 10 feet up and you have a reach weapon, that can work too. Incredible Aim is okay, but it's pretty situational. You make an attack that costs 2 actions, and that attack gets a +2 to hit and ignores concealment. So if something is slightly behind cover, you can attack with this. It still gets the armor bonus to being behind cover, but it's not concealed. Overall, I think Blind Fight is just better because Blind Fight ignores concealed forever on all attacks. But the +2 to hit is cool. This is if you know the target has almost no health left and you really want to make sure you hit with that attack. But at the same time, maybe attacking twice is just better? I don't know. Mobile Shot stance is hilarious and kind of makes no sense to me. This is a stance that if you have a ranged weapon and something is within 5 feet of you that would trigger an attack of opportunity, you can make that attack of opportunity with your weapon. I know it would be broken, but why do they have to be within 5 feet of me? Why can't they be within my first range increment? I know that would be busted with a 120-foot crossbow, but that would be such a good feat. Positioning Assault is actually pretty good. For 2 actions, if you are attacking with a 2-handed weapon and you manage to hit and deal damage, you can move that target to any space within 5 feet of you. Keep in mind, this is not move them 5 feet. If they are at your top left, you can hit them and move them all the way to your bottom right, which could be like 15 feet. If you are a large creature when you do this and you take up 4 spots on the field, you can move them all the way around to the other side of you, which can be huge. Or large. Size jokes. Finally, at level 8, Quick Shield Block is what all Sword and Board fighters crave. You get a second reaction you can use every turn specifically for shield block. Combine this with reactive shield and you can boom, block every single turn. It's a great combo. Sudden Leap, 2 actions, pretty simple. You make a long or high jump or a normal leap, and you get to attack at any point during that jump. This can lead to some cool situations where there's like a bird over a gorge that's attacking you, and you want to long jump past it, swipe it in midair, and land on the other side of the gorge. Pretty cool. This is another thing that I don't require people to have a feat to do it, but the feat makes it way easier. Disorienting Opening is a direct upgrade to your attacks of opportunity, though it doesn't really help you. If you successfully hit a target with any attack of opportunity, they are flat-footed until the start of your next turn, so you don't really get the benefits of them being flat-footed, but all of your allies sure do. Resounding Bravery is kind of funny to me because it's you being so proud of yourself that you make yourself stronger. Should you ever critically succeed any will save, you get a +1 status bonus to all of your saving throws and temporary hit points equal to half your level for 1 minute. On top of that, if it was a fear effect, you double all of that. So +2 to saves and your entire level in temporary hit points. That's actually incredible. Level 10 is a huge power level for fighters. There's a lot of good feats here, so let's take a look. Agile Grace for 2-weapon fighters, it's a must-take. Your multiple attack penalty for attacking with agile weapons becomes -3 instead of -4, which means if you attack 3 times in one turn, that's at full bonus, -3, -6. That's amazing on a fighter. Certain Strike is okay. It has that deadly press trait, but this one is sort of designed to miss, which I don't like from a design philosophy. This attack only gets a bonus on a miss, and if you miss, you deal full damage minus any damage dice. So you get your weapon specialization, and you get your ability score mod. So if you're attacking with like a +5 strength, and you have +3 from weapon specialization, you know, you miss, you deal 8 damage. Cool, I guess. Combat reflexes. You can make 2 attacks of opportunity per round instead of 1. Debilitating Shot is so broken that it let us defeat a dragon in our other campaign without anybody taking a single point of damage. For 2 actions, you make a ranged attack. If you hit, the target is slowed 1. They lose an action on their next turn. This goes away at the end of that turn, but then you hit them again. And they're slowed again. And you just do this every round, and boss fights become a joke. This is less helpful in fights with multiple enemies, as slowed 1 on a single enemy isn't huge, but in big single encounters, this is so stupid. There's no saving throw. There's nothing they can do. If you hit and you're a fighter, they're slowed 1. Stupid, broken feat. I love it. End of story. Disarming Twist could be such a cool, amazing feat you can make an entire build around if it didn't have that dirty, dirty press trait. For a single action, if you are using a single weapon in freehand, you can attack, and if you hit, you do the normal effect of, like the normal success of disarm, which gives them a -2 to attack rolls unless they reposition. Cool. If you critically hit with this attack, you disarm your opponent. But you're not gonna crit because it has the press trait! I hate the press trait. If you miss with this attack, they're flat-footed until the end of your current turn. Woo. Disruptive Stance is a stance that adds an additional trigger to your attacks of opportunity. If a creature uses any ability with the Concentrate trait within reach of your melee strike, you can attack them. Also, if you normal hit, it disrupts the attack, and you're a fighter. You're not gonna miss. Fearsome Brute is one of my favorite feats in the entire system for fighters. If you attack a frightened target, you deal bonus damage equal to double their frightened value. If you're a master in intimidation, this is increased to triple their frightened value. Now, over the long term, this isn't a whole bunch of extra damage, but keep in mind this is passive. You don't have to spend an action for this. This isn't a press trait. This is just forever, you do more damage to frightened creatures. I love it. Improved Knockdown is insane. It's like Knockdown, except when you hit, you no longer need to roll an athletics check for trip. It is automatically a critical success. And instead of the 1d6 damage they would take from tripping, if you're using a 2-handed weapon, they take your weapon damage die instead. So it's probably a d10 or a d12. This is so broken. This means for 2 actions, you can now hit something, knock them prone automatically, and deal an extra weapon damage die. That's nuts. Mirror Shield is so stupid, and I adore it. As a reaction, if an enemy spellcaster critically misses you with a spell, you can spend your reaction, if your shield is raised, to make a ranged attack roll. Or if you're also a spellcaster, you can use your spell attack roll instead. You probably want to use your ranged attack roll. If you hit, you reflect the spell back at them with the effects of a successful spell attack with the spell they cast. And you can critically hit with this! If you get a critical hit with your reflection, they critically hit themselves with their spell. I want to see a BBEG disintegrate themselves, please. Twin Riposte, if you use Twin Parry and an opponent critically misses you, you can make an attack of opportunity. Basically, 2-weapon fighting gets a lot of the single weapon fighting feats, 2 levels later. Cut from the Air. As a reaction, if you are aware that you are being targeted by a ranged attack and you are not flat-footed, you give yourself +4 AC against that attack by cutting it out of the air. You literally use your weapon to knock the arrow aside before it hits you. That's so cool and stupid. Overpowering Charge is a direct upgrade to Barreling Charge, and any creature you move through now takes damage equal to your Strength modifier. At level 10, that's probably 5. And if you critically succeed your Athletics check against their Fortitude DC, they take double. Hey, a free extra 5 to 10 damage against all those creatures, that's pretty fun. Also, they're all flat-footed until the end of your next turn, so you're welcome, party members. Brutal Finish is interesting. It is a single action and has that press trait, and you need to be using a two-handed weapon. This is an interesting feat because even if you have actions left, when you use Brutal Finish, your turn ends. This is basically a single action power attack. You use Brutal Finish, and at level 12, your attack deals 1 additional weapon damage die and ends your turn. When you hit level 18, you get another damage die, very similar to Power Attack. Also, if you miss with this attack, you still deal 1 damage die of damage, or 2 if you're level 18. It's a great way to end the turn. If you combine this with Furious Focus, so you use Power Attack, and then you're only at 1 multiple attack penalty, Power Attack into Brutal Finish can do a ton of damage. So, yeah. Dueling Dance for single weapon freehand fighters is when they get more defensive than sword and board fighters, kind of. Basically, this is a stance that has them permanently gain the AC bonus from Dueling Parry. So they get into this stance and their AC just increases by +2 forever. This also means because they're permanently under the effects of Dueling Parry, they can always attack of opportunity anyone who critically misses them so long as they're in this stance. It's great. Flinging Shove doubles the distance you can shove targets with Aggressive Block or Brutish Shove. Additionally, it gives them different upgrades. Aggressive Block now gives you the decision to shove or flat-foot your target, rather than your target making the decision. And with Brutish Shove, you get a failure effect of still shoving them 5 feet, even if you fail. Improved Dueling Riposte now allows you to make 2 attacks of opportunity per turn, specifically on attacks that critically miss you while Dueling Parry is active. I have a problem with this being the same level as the stance, as I think you want both of those, and I don't like synergistic feats being placed on the same level. It just feels bad to level up and then take an older feat again. You know, obviously that's gonna happen sometimes, it just seems like a weird design choice. Incredible Ricochet is okay, but really fun to imagine. It has the press trait, but so long as you have at least tried to attack a target once per turn, you can attack it again and ignore both its concealed condition and all cover. You don't even need to have hit them. So long as you tried to attack them, you can ignore concealed and ignore up to +4 AC from greater cover. This is actually pretty good. It's just an unfortunate event that it has the press trait, but it makes sense here because you need to have attacked them once, so I don't know. It's good. It's a good. Lunging Stance is interesting. It's a direct upgrade to your attack of opportunity so long as you're in the stance. Basically, it doubles the range of your attack of opportunity. If anybody does something that would trigger your attack of opportunity within 5-foot reach of you, that's a 10-foot circle, you can lunge 5 feet with your attacks of opportunity. This increases your threat range to so many squares. People can't really step away from you now. It's really good. Paragon's Guard is the exact same thing as Dueling Parry. For 1 action, you enter a stance with your shield, and you always act as though your shield is raised. Spring Attack is okay. It seems like a little bit of a high level. For 1 action with that lovely press trait, you can make a stride and attack so long as you end adjacent to another enemy. This is good. This means for 2 actions, you can strike, move, strike. So, you know, it's not bad. It's very likely you will want to attack again like this. So I am fine with this press trait because it makes sense and it's something you'll want to do if you finish an enemy with your first attack. You can quickly move over and attack another one without wasting actions. So that's not bad. I'm pretty cool with Spring Attack. Desperate Finisher is such a cool reaction. If you have used all of your actions but you have not ended your turn, you can give up all of your reactions for the round to use any ability with the press trait. Now this could be rough because they're likely going to be at -10, but any of those press actions with a failure attempt, especially something like Brutal Finisher, can be fantastic here for that extra little bit of damage just to see if you can end the fight early. But like I said, this takes your reactions, so no shield blocks, no attacks of opportunity, nothing. Determination is a cool idea, though I feel like being limited to once per day, it should be a little bit stronger. Basically, for a single action, you make a will save against the DC of any effect currently applied to you. If you counteract it successfully, it disappears. This is fantastic, don't get me wrong, but I feel like if you're gonna make it a will save, I'd say let it be once per hour. This is a level 14 feat. Once per hour is still only gonna be, you know, it just feels bad to once per day and fail. Cool, my level 14 feat is gone. Now, of course, they do get an extra level 14 feat with an improved flexibility class feature, but I still think maybe once per hour would just be too good. But it does specifically have to be a spell. You know, they can't do this against poisons or diseases or anything like that. They can't do it against curses. I don't know. I feel like this could be stronger. I don't know why Guiding Finish is level 14 feat. I don't know why Guiding Finish has the press trait. And I don't know why Guiding Finish exists. So long as you're using a single weapon and a free hand and you hit with Guiding Finish, you can move the target up to 10 feet to a space within your reach. So the best case scenario is you get to move them around you slightly. Why? I guess to position yourself between them and your ally maybe, but that's not what the one-handed freehand fighter typically does. Why isn't this like a level 6 feat? I don't like it. Guiding Riposte is at least a little bit cooler. It basically takes the ability we just talked about and puts it specifically on your dueling riposte attack of opportunity. Something critically misses you and you hit them back with your reaction, you can move them up to 10 feet into a space within your reach. This is better because your attack of opportunity is at your full bonus. It doesn't have that press trait and it makes your attack of opportunity do more. Without it being on the attack of opportunity and with the press trait, it's just not good enough to be level 14. This one I understand being level 14 though. Improved Twin Riposte. Because it's a theme, now 2 weapon fighters can do 2 attacks of opportunity when they get their Twin Riposte, when somebody critically misses, because they're the same as the one weapon, and they could have gotten more creative with these. Stance Savant. When you roll initiative, get into a stance. Really cool. This is basically, you can almost think of this as being hastened on the first turn of combat, and that extra action has to be used for a stance. Overall, taking this feat means you get 1 extra action every combat. Is that worth it? Especially comparing it to 2-weapon flurry. 2-weapon flurry with double slice, with agile graces, is the 2-weapon fighter dream. With all of those together, for 3 actions, you can attack 4 times, 2 of which are only at a -6 penalty. 2-weapon flurry lets you attack twice, once with each weapon. Multiple attack penalty does apply as normal, but if you've just used double slice before this, your multiple attack penalty is already maxed out at -6, so both of these are going to be at the same penalty anyway. So really good. The press trait kind of sucks, which means you can't use it right away, but again, this is designed to be used right after double slice for those 4 attacks, all pretty dang accurate. You're going to have almost greater weapon specialization at this point, so each of those attacks is doing mad bonus damage. That's a lot of fun. And for those of you who don't want to attack a ton of times, you can attack 1 time at everything around you. Whirlwind Strike, for 3 actions, you attack every single creature within your melee attack reach. Also, it's specifically enemies, so even if your ally is next to you, you don't hit them too. You make 1 attack roll and compare it to the armor class of every single enemy within your melee strike reach, and deal damage to any of them that you beat. This is great. It's 3 actions, it's going to be your entire turn, so you better already be in position, but if you are, Graceful Poise is a stance that is once again an upgrade for the 2-weapon fighter. So long as you are attacking with an agile weapon in your offhand, double slice now only counts as 1 multiple attack penalty. Basically, you combine this with 2-weapon flurry, and you're now attacking at full bonus, -3, -6 for 4 attacks. Incredible. Improved Reflexive Shield now lets you use your shield block against reflex save spells like Fireball and give that damage reduction to your allies as well. If you use shield block and you reduce the Fireball's damage by 15, then any adjacent ally also gets that 15 damage reduction. Very nice. This is the perfect stand behind me ability. Multi-shot stance is a decent upgrade for bow and arrow fighters. The penalty from double shot or triple shot is halved as long as you're in this stance. So double shot is now 2 shots only at -1, triple shot is 3 shots only at -2. Not bad. The problem, you can't move. For some reason, you need to hunker down for this, and being level 16, that seems like a really bad restriction to have. I don't know. I don't like it. Twin defense. Only finally at level 16 does 2-weapon fighting get the stance that gives them the permanent upgrade to armor class as though they had twin parried. Why is this level 16? Shields and one-handed got them at level 12. Why is this level 16? Back over in the APG, Overwhelming Blow is really cool. For 3 actions, you make a super attack. If you hit, it is a critical hit, and you get deadly D12. You get a bunch of extra damage, but whether you hit or not, you are flat-footed and stunned 1. The flat-footed lasts till the start of your next turn, and you lose an action on the following turn. Basically, you can never use Overwhelming Blow twice in a row, but it is a really cool ability to end a fight, or just crush a single enemy. Impossible Volley is pretty cool. For 3 actions, so long as your weapon doesn't need to reload, you can make a ranged strike at every single creature within a 10-foot burst. Keep in mind that is a burst, so a 20-foot area. Each of these strikes is at -2, but you can theoretically attack up to, I think, 16 enemies with this, which is pretty good. This is the ultimate ability for bow and arrow. It doesn't get better than this. You also only roll damage once and apply it to all of the targets. This is sort of a fancy bow and arrow fireball, and I'm here for it. Savage Critical should not be level 18 feet. Savage Critical is incredibly underwhelming. Savage Critical lets you crit on a 19 instead of a 20. Also, this only works with legendary proficiency weapons. This doesn't even turn fails into successes on a 19. It only turns 19 successes into crits. This feat is bad. On the other hand, in the APG, Smash from the Air is hilarious. You can now use your weapon to knock spell attack rolls away. You can literally be Goku and slap spells and beams from hitting you and just knock them into the mountainside. So cool, dude. And finally, the level 20 feats. Boundless Reprisals. You get an extra reaction on every enemy's turn. If you're fighting 10 enemies, you get an extra reaction on each of their turns. Now, you can only use that reaction on their turn. It disappears at the end, but basically this means you can attack of opportunity once every single time an enemy moves. Or, if you have the shield health for it, you can shield block once on every enemy's turn. That's so cool. And finally, Weapon Supremacy is good. You are permanently quickened, but that quickened action can only be used to strike. You know, it lets you position a little bit better. It would be better if you could stride or strike with it, but I guess beggars can't be choosers. I feel like it's a little underpowered for level 20, but Paizo has a thing with permanently quickened effects being a level 20 feat, so it makes sense from a design standpoint. And finally, in the APG, Ultimate Flexibility. This basically gives you a 3rd class feature bonus feat. You get an 8th level feat or lower, a 14th feat or lower, and an 18th feat or lower. You're effectively trading away your 20th level feat for an interchangeable 18th level feat or lower. On top of that, rather than being restricted to daily preparations, you can now swap these feats in 1 hour. If you take an hour to collect yourself and study your strategies, you can switch out any of these feats right then and there. Pretty dang cool. It does specifically state, though, if you have something like Determination, which is a once-per-day ability, you cannot trade that out for a new feat once you have used it. And then we have... That's it. That's it! We're done! I did it! Oh, we've done it! 3 months, 5 failed. I have tried. So let me put this into perspective. All of my failed recordings combined together is about 4 hours of footage. This one's an hour and a half, and I have 3 failed attempts as well that were at least an hour each. I am so happy. I feel like my demons have been laid to rest. I hope you enjoyed it. Look at these patrons. Look how cool they are for supporting this shit. I bit my tongue. Keep going, patrons. I'm not stopping. I'm not doing another take. You liked the video. I finally got this out. I did it. I did it for you. I did it for me too, but I did it for you. Like the video again and subscribe to the channel for more Pathfinder 2e content like this. Thank you to all of you, all 14,000 of you crazy people for sticking with me through these videos. It feels great to be back to the rules. I'm glad I took my month off and I'm ready to hit the ground running. So look forward to the Catfolk deep dive. Look forward to more spell reviews. I am so excited. Now that this video is done, I feel like a dam has been opened and my videos can start to flow again. This video has been a thorn in my side for months, and I'm so happy it's done. So thank you all so very much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And until next time, no nat ones. Woo!